The anniversary card fell out of the pile of mail like a confession waiting to be discovered. I picked it up from our kitchen floor, noting the expensive cream cardstock that Karen always favored for special occasions. The elegant script across the front read, "To someone special," in gold foil lettering. I almost set it aside, assuming it was for our upcoming 8th wedding anniversary next month. But something made me pause. The envelope was already open, and a corner of the handwritten note inside was visible. Karen's distinctive handwriting caught my eye. The same flowing script I'd seen on countless grocery lists and birthday cards over the years. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled out the card and read the message that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage. To James, 6 months of incredible passion. Here's to many more adventures together at our special place. You make me feel alive again in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Love always, Karen. My hands trembled as I read it again, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something innocent. 6 months. The timeline hit me like a punch to the gut. Karen's college roommate's brother, James Hartwell, had moved to our city exactly 6 months ago for a regional sales manager position. I sank into one of our kitchen chairs, the card still clutched in my hands. As a high school principal, I'd dealt with enough teenage drama to recognize the signs of deception when I saw them. But this wasn't some student lying about homework. This was my wife of 8 years, the woman who shared my bed every night, apparently sharing much more with someone else. The front door opened, and Karen's voice echoed through the house. "David? I'm home. Did you remember we need to pick up supplies for James's housewarming party tomorrow?" I quickly slipped the card into my desk drawer and walked to the entryway, trying to keep my expression neutral. Karen stood there in her navy work blazer, her auburn hair perfectly styled despite a full day at the marketing firm. She looked radiant, more vibrant than I'd seen her in months. "About that party," I said carefully, "you've really gone all out for James. What's the final head count?" Karen's face lit up with an enthusiasm that now seemed suspect. 15 people. I invited mostly my friends from work and a few neighbors. I want James to feel really welcomed in the community." She kicked off her heels and headed toward the kitchen. "He's been so grateful for all the help I've given him settling in." Poor guy didn't know a soul when he arrived. I followed her, watching as she pulled out her phone and began scrolling through what I now realized were probably messages from James. "You've spent a lot of time helping him. Every weekend for the past 6 months, if I remember correctly." "Well, someone had to show him around," she said without looking up from her phone. "Lisa asked me to keep an eye on her brother, and he's such a sweet guy. Really sophisticated taste. Nothing like the usual transplants we get in this town." That comment stung more than she probably intended. I'd lived here my entire life, working my way up from teacher to assistant principal to my current role at the high school. Apparently, my local roots made me less sophisticated in Karen's eyes. "What kind of help exactly?" I pressed, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Karen finally looked up from her phone, and I caught a flash of something. Guilt? Defensiveness? Before she smiled brightly. "Oh, the usual. Apartment hunting, furniture shopping, showing him the best restaurants. He has such refined taste that I wanted to make sure he found places worthy of his standards." The way she talked about James's taste and standards, as if she'd appointed herself his personal guide to sophistication, made my stomach churn. I thought about the credit card statements I'd been too trusting to examine closely, and wondered what other help Karen had been providing. "Speaking of the party, Karen continued, moving to the refrigerator and pulling out ingredients for dinner. I picked up that wine James mentioned loving. It's a bit expensive, but I want everything to be perfect for him. How much is a bit expensive? Only $80 a bottle. I got 3 bottles, just to be safe. She said it so casually, as if spending $240 on wine for another man's housewarming party was perfectly reasonable. I also got that cheese he raved about from the artisan shop downtown. The owner special ordered it just for James. I watched my wife of 8 years fuss over another man's preferences with an attention to detail she hadn't shown for my needs in months. When was the last time she'd special ordered anything for me? When had she last spent $240 on something just to make me happy? You seem to know a lot about James's preferences, I observed. Karen's cheeks flushed slightly. We've become good friends. He's easy to talk to, and he really appreciates quality. It's refreshing to meet someone who understands the finer things in life. There it was again, that subtle implication that I somehow lacked appreciation for quality or sophistication. I'd supported Karen through her marketing degree, encouraged her career ambitions, and worked overtime to afford the lifestyle she wanted. But apparently, James understood the finer things in a way I never could. I'm looking forward to meeting this paragon of sophistication, I said, trying to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. Karen missed my tone entirely, her face brightening with genuine excitement. Oh, you'll love him. He's so charming and funny, and he's got this way of making everyone feel special when he talks to them. Lisa was right about him being a catch. A catch. My wife had just described another man as a catch, and she seemed completely oblivious to how inappropriate that sounded. I excused myself to my home office, claiming I had papers to grade, but really I needed space to think. Sitting at my desk, I pulled out the anniversary card again and studied every word. The phrase, "our special place," particularly bothered me. What special place did Karen have with James? And how had she managed to develop such an intimate relationship without me noticing? I opened my laptop and began doing what I did best as an educator, research and analysis. I pulled up our joint credit card statements for the past 6 months, something I rarely bothered to check since Karen handled most of our finances. What I found made my blood run cold. Dinner at Chez Laurent. $127.50. The same night Karen claimed she was having girls' night with her coworkers. A weekend at the boutique hotel downtown, $312.75, charged on a Saturday when Karen said she was helping James shop for furniture. Multiple charges at expensive restaurants, all for amounts that suggested 2 people dining, all on days when Karen had supposedly been running errands or meeting friends. The evidence was damning, but I forced myself to be thorough. I needed to be absolutely certain before I acted. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Karen's social media posts from the past 6 months. The change in her posting pattern was obvious once I looked for it. 6 months ago, her Instagram had been full of photos of us together, couple selfies, and posts about our life. Gradually, those had been replaced by artistic shots of coffee cups, sunset views, and carefully cropped photos that showed her in beautiful locations but never revealed who she was with. One post from 3 weeks ago showed Karen's hand holding a glass of wine, with a man's hand visible at the edge of the frame. The caption read, "Sometimes the best conversations happen over good wine." I'd assumed she was out with her female colleagues, but now I could see the masculine watch on the partially visible wrist. An expensive piece that definitely wasn't mine. The sound of Karen's laughter from the kitchen pulled me from my investigation. She was on the phone, her voice carrying that warm, intimate tone I remembered from our early dating days. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow night," she was saying. "I've planned everything exactly how you like it." No, David won't suspect anything. He's been so busy with school stuff lately, he barely notices what I'm doing. Of course I've been careful. I'm not stupid, James. My heart stopped. I pressed myself against the office door, straining to hear more. "The party is perfect cover. Everyone will see how grateful you are for my help, and David will just think I'm being a good friend. Yes, I love you too. 6 months feels like 6 years, doesn't it? Like we've been together forever." I closed my eyes, feeling the last of my hopes crumble. There it was. Confirmation that my wife was not only having an affair but was actively deceiving me about it. The casualness with which she discussed my obliviousness made it even worse. I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being treated like a fool. When Karen's conversation ended, I waited a few minutes before returning to the kitchen. She was humming while she cooked, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. The irony was devastating. My wife's affair was making her glow with happiness while destroying our marriage. "Who was on the phone?" I asked, testing to see if she'd lie directly to my face. "Oh, just Sarah from work. She's so excited about the party tomorrow. She can't wait to meet James." The lie rolled off her tongue so easily that I wondered how many others I'd believed over the past 6 months. I spent the rest of the evening watching Karen with new eyes. She checked her phone constantly, smiling at messages I now knew weren't from her coworkers. She talked enthusiastically about the housewarming party, describing the decorations she'd bought and the playlist she'd curated specifically for James's taste in music. Every detail revealed how deeply involved she was in this man's life. When we went to bed, Karen fell asleep quickly, her phone charging on the nightstand within easy reach. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd missed the signs for so long. The extra time spent getting ready in the mornings, the new lingerie I'd attributed to a boost in self-confidence, the way she'd started working out more and changing her hairstyle. I'd been happy that my wife seemed more vibrant and confident, never imagining that another man was the source of her transformation. Saturday morning arrived with Karen in full party planning mode. She was up early, arranging flowers and setting up decorations throughout our house. Watching her transform our home into a showcase for another man felt like a violation I couldn't fully process. "James is coming early to help set up," she announced while arranging appetizers on our best serving platters. "He insisted on contributing more than just showing up." "How thoughtful of him," I managed to say. Karen didn't catch my sarcasm. "He really is. You'll see what I mean when you meet him. He's got this natural charm that just draws people in." The doorbell rang at 5:30, 30 minutes before the party was scheduled to start. Karen rushed to answer it, and I heard her greet James with an enthusiasm that made my chest tight. "James!" Perfect timing. "You look amazing. Is that the new shirt we picked out last weekend?" "Of course. Your taste is impeccable, as always." I walked to the entryway to get my first look at the man who'd been sleeping with my wife for 6 months. James Hartwell was admittedly handsome, tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident smile that probably served him well in sales. He was younger than me, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair styled in a way that suggested regular visits to an expensive barber. "David," Karen said, her arm linked through James's in a gesture that seemed far too intimate for just friends. "Meet James Hartwell. James, this is my husband, David." James extended his hand with a firm grip and direct eye contact. "David, I can't thank you enough for hosting this party. Karen has told me so much about you. She says you're an amazing principal, really making a difference in kids' lives. His charm was undeniable, and his praise seemed genuine. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have actually liked him. The thought that he was complimenting me while sleeping with my wife added an extra layer of betrayal to the situation. Karen's been very generous with her time, helping you settle in, I replied, watching both their faces carefully. She's been incredible, James said, looking at Karen with obvious affection. I don't know what I would have done without her guidance. She has such sophisticated taste and really understands what makes a place feel like home. Karen practically glowed under his praise. James makes it easy. He appreciates quality and isn't afraid to invest in beautiful things. The way they looked at each other, the comfortable familiarity in their body language, the inside jokes and shared references. It was all the evidence I needed. They weren't just having an affair. They were in love. The realization hit me harder than I'd expected. Guests began arriving, and I watched Karen work the room with James at her side. She introduced him to everyone personally, reciting his professional accomplishments and praising his taste in everything from wine to music. She barely left his side all evening, touching his arm when she laughed at his jokes, refilling his drink before he even asked, and generally treating him like the guest of honor at his own housewarming party. Karen seems very fond of James, our neighbor Sandra Mills commented to me during a quiet moment. They make quite a team planning this party. I nodded, not trusting myself to respond appropriately. Sandra's observation was diplomatic, but I could see the curiosity in her eyes. Other guests were noticing too, the way Karen lit up around James, how she seemed to know his preferences better than a casual friend should. The comfortable intimacy between them that crossed normal boundaries. James has such great style, Karen announced to a group of guests, standing close enough to him that their shoulders touched. He already got promoted after just 6 months at his company. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you really apply yourself and understand what people want. The comment stung because it was clearly directed at me. I'd been in my current position for 3 years, having worked my way up through the school district over a decade. But apparently, James's 6-month promotion was more impressive than my steady career progression. James is so emotionally available too, Karen continued, seemingly oblivious to how inappropriate her comments were. It's refreshing to meet someone who isn't afraid to express their feelings and really connect on a deeper level. Several guests glanced at me uncomfortably. My wife was essentially praising another man's emotional intelligence while implying I lack those qualities, and she was doing it in front of our friends and neighbors. The evening's worst moment came when James decided to give an impromptu thank you speech to the gathered guests. He stood in our living room, wine glass in hand, with Karen beaming at his side. I want to thank everyone for welcoming me to this amazing community, James began, his sales training evident in his confident delivery. Moving to a new city can be lonely, but you've all made me feel at home. He paused, looking directly at Karen. I'm especially grateful to Karen for all her personal attention and guidance. She's helped me with everything from finding the perfect apartment to discovering the best restaurants in town. She's been incredibly generous with her time and energy. The pause before energy felt loaded with meaning, and Karen's response confirmed my suspicions. She touched his arm affectionately, her face glowing with pride at his acknowledgement. The gesture was brief, but unmistakably intimate, the kind of touch reserved for lovers, not friends. Karen has been my lifeline in this transition, James continued. She's shown me that this city has everything I could want, and more. Here's to new beginnings and the special people who make them possible. He raised his glass in Karen's direction, and she responded with a smile so radiant it took my breath away. I'd seen that smile before. It was the same expression she'd worn when I proposed to her 8 years ago, the same look she'd given me on our wedding day. And now she was giving it to another man in our living room, surrounded by our friends and neighbors. The party wound down around 10 o'clock, with guests gradually filtering out into the night. James was among the last to leave, lingering by the door as Karen walked him out. I watched from the kitchen window as they stood on our front porch, their conversation animated and intimate. Karen touched his arm repeatedly, and when they finally hugged goodbye, it lasted longer than any friendly embrace should. When Karen came back inside, she was practically floating. That went perfectly. Did you see how much everyone loved James? Sarah from work was completely charmed by him, and even Mr. Peterson from next door said he seemed like a great addition to the neighborhood. I helped her clean up in silence, stacking plates and glasses while she continued to rave about James's charm and the party's success. Every compliment she paid him felt like another small betrayal. James was so grateful for everything, she continued, loading the dishwasher. He said this was exactly what he needed to feel like he really belongs here. I'm so glad we could do this for him. You certainly went above and beyond, I said, testing the waters. Karen beamed. Well, he deserves it. He's had such a hard transition after his divorce, and he's working so hard to build a new life here. It's the least I could do to help him feel welcomed. The mention of James's divorce was new information. I wondered if Karen saw herself as his rebound relationship or if she genuinely believed their affair was something more meaningful. Either way, the fact that she was consoling a recently divorced man while married to me added another layer of betrayal to the situation. Sunday morning, I woke up early and decided to conduct a more thorough investigation. Karen was still sleeping, exhausted from the previous night's party, so I had time to dig deeper into the evidence. I started with her social media accounts, looking for connections to James that I might have missed. What I found was a carefully curated deception. Karen had been tagging James in photos for months, but always in group settings or public places where their relationship could be explained as friendship. However, the comments between them told a different story. Heart emojis, inside jokes, and references to private conversations painted the picture of two people deeply involved with each other. One exchange from 2 weeks ago particularly caught my attention. James, last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. Karen, me too. Tuesday can't come fast enough. James, our special place is becoming my favorite spot in the city. Karen, mine too. I love how we can just be ourselves there. Tuesday was typically when Karen claimed to have late work meetings. Our special place, the phrase from the anniversary card, was apparently a regular meeting spot for their affair. I moved on to our financial records, printing out 6 months' worth of credit card statements. The pattern was clear once I organized the data chronologically. Expensive dinners, hotel charges, gifts, and shopping trips that perfectly aligned with Karen's supposed work events and girls' nights out. She'd been funding their affair with our joint accounts, and I'd been too trusting to notice. The most damning evidence was a charge from 3 weeks ago for $300 at a jewelry store downtown. I'd assumed it was for a gift for one of her coworkers, but now I realized it was probably for James. My wife had bought another man jewelry using our shared finances. My phone rang, interrupting my investigation. It was Lisa Hartwell, James's sister and Karen's college roommate. We'd only met a few times over the years, but she was calling to thank me for hosting the party. David, I hope you don't mind me calling directly, Lisa said. I wanted to thank you and Karen for last night. James called me this morning absolutely glowing about how welcomed he felt. Karen put a lot of effort into making it special for him, I replied carefully. She really did. I feel so much better knowing he has such good friends looking out for him. Moving after a divorce is never easy, but James seems to be thriving. He mentioned he's been seeing someone seriously for about 6 months now, but he won't tell me who it is. Says he wants to keep it private until he's sure it's going somewhere permanent. My heart stopped. James had been telling his sister about a 6-month relationship while my wife had been spending 6 months helping him settle in. The timeline was too perfect to be coincidental. Did he say anything else about this mystery woman? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Just that she's amazing and has completely changed his perspective on relationships. He said she's helped him see what he was missing in his marriage and that he's never felt this connected to someone before. I haven't seen him this happy in years. Lisa's words hit me like a physical blow. James wasn't just having an affair with my wife, he was planning a future with her, and Karen apparently felt the same way, based on her behavior at the party and her obvious emotional investment in their relationship. After ending the call with Lisa, I sat in my office trying to process everything I'd learned. My wife was in love with another man, had been carrying on an affair for 6 months, was using our money to fund their relationship, and was apparently planning some kind of future with him. Meanwhile, James might not even know that Karen was married. That last thought stopped me cold. What if James genuinely believed Karen was single? She'd been spending entire weekends with him, knew his schedule well enough to predict his free time, and was obviously deeply involved in his life. If he was recently divorced and looking for a serious relationship, he might not have questioned Karen's availability. I needed to test this theory, so I decided to do some research on James himself. A quick internet search revealed his LinkedIn profile, which showed his move to our city 6 months ago for the regional sales manager position. His social media accounts showed a man rebuilding his life after a divorce, posting about new experiences and professional achievements. There were no photos of him with Karen, but there were several posts about feeling grateful for new friendships and finding unexpected happiness in his new city. One post from a month ago read, "6 months in my new city and finally feeling like I'm home." Amazing what the right person can do to change your whole perspective. New beginnings, grateful, happiness. The timing and language perfectly matched Karen's anniversary card. They were celebrating their 6-month relationship milestone while I remained oblivious to the affair happening under my nose. I spent the rest of Sunday organizing my evidence and planning my next move. As a school principal, I dealt with my share of crises and learned the importance of having all the facts before taking action. I needed to be strategic about how I handled this situation, both for my own protection and to ensure that the truth came out in a way that would hold both Karen and James accountable for their actions. Monday morning brought a new revelation. Karen was getting ready for work when her phone buzzed with a text message. She was in the shower, so I glanced at the notification on her screen. It was from James. "Can't wait for tomorrow night. I have a surprise for you that's been 6 months in the making." Tuesday night, their regular meeting time at their special place. And James had a surprise that tied into their 6-month timeline. I had a sinking feeling that James was planning to propose or make some other significant relationship commitment, not knowing that Karen was already married. When Karen came out of the bathroom, I decided to test her directly. Any plans for tomorrow night? I was thinking we could finally watch that movie you've been wanting to see. Karen's face flushed slightly. Oh, I can't. I have that work dinner I mentioned. The one with the clients from Portland. It'll probably run late, so don't wait up for me. Another lie, delivered with practiced ease. I nodded and kissed her goodbye, watching her leave for work with the knowledge that she was probably planning to receive another man's proposal tomorrow night. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to confront James directly, reveal that Karen was married, and let the truth destroy their relationship before they could take it any further. As an educator, I believed in the power of truth and consequences. It was time for both Karen and James to face the reality of their situation. I looked up James's address from the party invitation list Karen had compiled. He lived in a luxury apartment complex downtown, exactly the kind of sophisticated housing Karen had praised him for choosing. I planned to visit him Tuesday evening, right before Karen's supposed work dinner. Tuesday afternoon, I sat in my office at school, grading papers and trying to focus on my job while my marriage fell apart around me. The normalcy of lesson plans and student concerns felt surreal when contrasted with the bomb I was about to drop on my personal life. At 5 o'clock, I drove to James's apartment building. The complex was impressive, all glass and steel with a doorman and valet parking. It was definitely a step up from our modest suburban home, and I could see why Karen might be attracted to the lifestyle James represented. I found his apartment number and knocked on the door, my heart pounding. When James answered, he looked surprised but not alarmed to see me. "David, what a pleasant surprise. Come in, come in." He was impeccably dressed in slacks and a button-down shirt, clearly preparing for his evening with Karen. "What brings you by?" I stepped into his apartment, noting the expensive furnishings and artwork that Karen had undoubtedly helped him select. Everything was perfectly coordinated and sophisticated, a bachelor pad designed to impress. "We need to talk about Karen," I said without preamble. James's expression shifted slightly, a wariness creeping into his eyes. "Is everything okay? Is she all right?" "That depends on how you define all right," I replied, pulling out my phone and showing him a photo from our wedding 8 years ago. "I'm not just Karen's friend, James. I'm her husband." The color drained from James's face as he stared at the photo. "What? No, that can't be right. Karen isn't married. She would have told me." I showed him more photos, recent anniversary celebrations, Christmas mornings, vacation pictures spanning years of marriage. "We've been married for 8 years. We live together in the house where you attended the housewarming party Saturday night. The party Karen hosted for you in our home." James sank into his leather sofa, his face ashen. "This has to be some kind of mistake. Karen and we've been together for 6 months. She's never mentioned a husband. She spends weekends with me, we go on trips together. She helped me decorate this entire apartment. Using our joint credit card," I added, pulling out printed statements showing Karen's purchases for his apartment. "She's been funding your relationship with our shared finances." James stared at the evidence, his hands shaking. "I don't understand." "Why would she lie about something like this? We talk about everything. We've made plans. I was going to—" He trailed off, but I could guess what he'd been about to say. "You were going to propose tonight, weren't you? The surprise you texted her about?" James nodded numbly, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. 6 months felt like the right time. We clicked so perfectly, and she seemed as committed as I was. I thought we were building something real. The irony was devastating. Here was a man who'd fallen genuinely in love with my wife, planning to propose to her while believing she was available for a committed relationship. Karen had manipulated not just me, but James as well. James, I need you to understand something, I said, sitting across from him. I don't think you're a bad person. I think you've been deceived just as much as I have. But Karen is married, and she's been lying to both of us for 6 months. He looked up at me with eyes full of pain and confusion. What kind of person does this? How do you carry on a relationship with someone for 6 months while married to someone else? How do you lie about something so fundamental? I didn't have answers for him. I was still processing Karen's deception myself. I found the anniversary card she wrote you. 6 months of incredible passion, she called it, while married to me. James buried his face in his hands. She wrote about our special place, about how I made her feel alive again. I thought I was helping her discover something new about herself. She never mentioned feeling trapped or unhappy in a marriage. What is your special place? I asked, dreading the answer. The rooftop garden at the Grandview Hotel. We started meeting there after I helped her pick out furniture for my apartment. She said it was peaceful and private, somewhere we could talk without interruption. He looked up at me with dawning horror. She was meeting me there while married to you. All those conversations about our future, our connection, our plans. She was cheating on her husband. The Grandview Hotel was 15 minutes from our house. Karen could have driven there easily on any of her supposed errands or work meetings. She'd been conducting an affair practically in our backyard while I trusted her completely. I have to call her, James said, reaching for his phone. I have to confront her about this. She thinks she's meeting you tonight, I said. She told me she has a work dinner. She's planning to lie to my face and then come see you. James stared at his phone, the weight of Karen's deception clearly overwhelming him. I can't believe this. 6 months of my life, all these feelings, all these plans, based on a complete lie. I felt an unexpected sympathy for him. He'd been used just as much as I had, manipulated into a relationship based on false pretenses. What are you going to do? I'm going to end it, he said firmly. Tonight, I can't be part of this anymore. I won't be the other man in someone's marriage, especially when I didn't even know I was playing that role. I nodded, respecting his decision. For what it's worth, I believe you didn't know. Karen is very good at deception, apparently. James walked me to the door, still clutching the engagement ring he'd planned to give my wife. David, I'm sorry. I never would have pursued her if I'd known she was married. I'm not that kind of person. I know, I said. Take care of yourself, James. I drove home feeling oddly empty. The conversation with James had confirmed everything I'd suspected, but it had also shown me that Karen's betrayal extended beyond just cheating. She'd manipulated an innocent man into falling in love with her, accepting gifts and romantic gestures while planning a future she couldn't deliver. In some ways, what she'd done to James was almost worse than what she'd done to me. At home, I waited for Karen to return from her fictional work dinner. She came in around 10:30, glowing with happiness that quickly faded when she saw my expression. How was your work dinner? I asked. Fine, she said carefully. Just the usual client entertainment stuff. Why do you ask? I pulled out the anniversary card and placed it on the kitchen counter between us. Interesting timeline on this card, Karen. 6 months. Matches James's arrival in our city exactly. The color drained from her face, but she tried to maintain her composure. I don't know what you're talking about. I know about the affair, I said quietly. I know about the secret meetings, the joint credit card charges, the lies about work dinners and girls' nights out. I know about your special place at the Grandview Hotel. Karen's facade crumbled completely. She sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. How did you find out? Does it matter? The question is why, Karen? Why destroy our marriage for someone you barely know? You don't understand, she said through her tears. James makes me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. He appreciates me, listens to me, makes me feel special. When was the last time you really saw me, David? When was the last time you made me feel like I was the most important thing in your world? Her words stung, because there was some truth to them. We'd settled into comfortable routines over 8 years of marriage, and perhaps I had taken her for granted. But that didn't justify 6 months of lies and betrayal. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about your feelings? I asked. It wasn't supposed to happen, Karen said. I was just helping Lisa's brother settle in, being friendly and welcoming. But James was so different from anyone I'd ever met. He was charming and sophisticated, and he made me feel like the most fascinating woman in the world. While you were married to me, I tried to stay away from him, she continued, as if she hadn't heard me. But every time we were together, it felt so right. Like this was what I'd been missing all along. James understands me in ways you never have. I thought about James sitting in his apartment, devastated by the revelation that the woman he loved was married. Did it ever occur to you that James might be in love with you? That he might be making plans for a future based on the lie that you're available? Karen's face went white. What do you mean? I visited James tonight. I told him the truth about our marriage. I watched her process this information, her eyes widening with horror. He didn't know, Karen. He genuinely believed you were single and available for a committed relationship. No, she whispered. That's not possible. He wouldn't. I mean, we never specifically discussed. He was going to propose to you tonight, I said. He bought a ring and everything. 6 months felt like the right time to take your relationship to the next level. Karen buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Oh God, what have I done? You've destroyed 2 relationships simultaneously, I said. James ended things tonight. He won't be part of an affair, especially one he didn't know he was having. The next few days were a blur of difficult conversations and life-changing decisions. Karen tried calling James repeatedly, but he'd blocked her number. She begged me for another chance, promising to end the affair and work on our marriage, but the trust was gone. I'd seen how she looked at him, heard how she talked about him, and I knew that what she felt for James went far deeper than what remained between us. I contacted a divorce attorney and began documenting the evidence of Karen's affair. The credit card statements, text messages, and witness testimony from the housewarming party painted a clear picture of adultery and financial deception. In our state, adultery was grounds for divorce and could affect the division of assets. News of Karen's affair spread through our social circle quickly. Sandra Mills, our observant neighbor, had suspected something inappropriate and wasn't surprised by the revelation. Friends and colleagues who'd attended the housewarming party remembered Karen's behavior with James and sided with me in the divorce proceedings. Karen's workplace became problematic for her as well. Several of the expensive dinners she'd charged to the company expense account were actually dates with James, not legitimate business meetings. When HR investigated, they found a pattern of policy violations that resulted in disciplinary action and damaged her professional reputation. James, meanwhile, requested a transfer to another city to escape the embarrassment and gossip surrounding the affair. He'd been manipulated into a relationship based on lies, and the community that had welcomed him now knew him as the other man in a marriage, even though he'd been deceived about Karen's status. 6 months later, I found myself in a very different place. The divorce was finalized, with Karen receiving minimal assets due to her adultery and misuse of marital funds. She'd moved in with her sister across town and was struggling to rebuild her career after the ethics violations at work. I remained in our house, having bought out Karen's share, and focused on my work at the school. The crisis had actually strengthened my leadership skills and reputation in the community. Parents and colleagues respected how I'd handled the situation with dignity, and the school board had even approached me about a superintendent position in the district. On a crisp autumn evening, I ran into Michelle Parker, a fellow educator I'd known professionally for years. She'd heard about my divorce and offered to buy me coffee to see how I was doing. Michelle was smart, kind, and shared my passion for education. We talked for hours about teaching, leadership, and rebuilding after difficult life changes. "You know," she said as we parted ways, "I've always admired how you handle challenges. You face things head-on and find constructive solutions instead of just reacting emotionally." Her words reminded me why I'd become an educator in the first place. I believed in accountability, in facing consequences, and in learning from mistakes. Karen had made her choices and faced the results. James had been deceived but had acted honorably once he learned the truth. And I had discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed. The last I heard about James, he'd been promoted again in his new city and was reportedly dating someone new. Someone who was actually single and available for the kind of committed relationship he'd thought he was building with Karen. As for Karen, she'd learned that sophisticated taste and passion weren't enough to build a life on lies. The man she'd thought was her perfect match had rejected her once he learned about her deception, and the husband she'd taken for granted was no longer waiting for her to appreciate what she'd had. I never did figure out what Karen meant by our special place beyond the hotel rooftop. But I'd found my own special place. A life built on honesty, integrity, and the respect of a community that had seen me handle crisis with grace. In education, we teach that actions have consequences and that accountability leads to growth. Sometimes the most important lessons happen outside the classroom, and sometimes the teacher learns as much as the students. The wrong anniversary card had revealed the right truth about my marriage, and in the end, that truth had set me free to build something better.